Right, so there seems to be a lot of questions on these first two sections of problems, right? Where it's asking you to either find the value of c that would make it a binomial square or to actually write it as a binomial square. Because if you guys type factor into your calculator, it's giving you a weird form, right? And so here's your two options for this. Right? If you use your calculator, right, what it appears as though is happening is if you go and you type this in and just try to factor it, so if you factor x squared minus 4 over 9x plus 4 over 81. Okay, this is the form that it's giving you, right? It's telling you something like 9x minus 2 squared all over 81. Well, this isn't a binomial square, right? Because this 81 down here, even though it is a perfect square, it's not written as a square. So if you're going to use your calculators to do this, here's the extra steps you'd have to take before entering it. Okay, what you'd have to do is you'd have to rewrite this entire thing inside of a single fraction being squared. So the numerator is not going to change at all. It's already inside of the square. But if we moved 81 up into this quantity squared, well, what value would you square to get 81? 9. So that becomes the denominator in here. Well, then you still have this additional step of now distributing this division of 9 into each term. So basically, inside the fraction bar here, you're going to rewrite this as 9x over 9 minus 2 over 9, which can simplify because 9 over 9 reduces to just x minus 2/9 quantity squared. So this is what you would enter online for that answer. Okay, now that's somewhat complicated and it takes a lot of time. It actually takes more time to do that than it would to answer this question by hand. So this is a question that is much easier to solve by hand because when you have a perfect square trinomial form, which all of these do, it can be rewritten as a binomial square. The pattern for your binomial square is always first term of x, and your second term, you can think of it either of these two ways. The second term is either 1/2 of this quantity. Okay, so you can either say 1/2 of negative 4 over 9. Okay, if that's the case, what you can see here is 2 goes into the 4 twice. 1 times a negative 2 gives you negative 2 over 9. It's the same thing, right? X minus 2/9 quantity squared. Okay, so you can either take half of this b value, okay, so where b is the coefficient of x, okay, or the other alternative for this would be you can square root these two terms. Okay, so if you're going to square root these two terms, what's the square root of 4? 2. What's the square root of 8? And then if you do it this way, so if you take the square root of your c value, if that's kind of what you're doing on that, then you have to take into consideration it's the sign of whatever the b term is. Okay? So you'll use the sign of b. So in this case, the b was a negative. So it's square root of 4, which is 2, square root of 81, which is 9. Use the minus for that. Okay, so let me again just kind of show you. I'll do example 29 here using this same idea. Okay, so you can see how to do it by hand and solve it really fast. Okay, so here's your problem. If you want to rewrite the binomial square form, first term is x, second term is either half of negative 3, so negative 3/2, very easy, you're done. You don't have to do anything else. Okay, or it's a square root of 9 over the square root of 4. Square root of 9 is 3, square root of 4 is 2. Changes the sign to whatever b is negative. So that would be your answer. Does that make a little bit more sense? It's quicker than I saw a lot of you trying to do it by calculators.